Jo Mackie, Principal Lawyer and Head of Employment Law Team at Slater & Gordon. Thanks for joining us. So, I mean, it seems different for us because we're talking about Westminster, but would these new Westminster allegations constitute sexual misconduct?
If they're true, then probably yes. The problem is that I think that what's happened with Westminster is you've seen the Chris Pincher debacle, where Boris Johnson allegedly knew, or has admitted that he knew, allegations about Pincher existed and then still made him Deputy Chief Whip. So what surprised me most is that people have come forward, given that's the history of the workplace they're dealing with in the Houses of Parliament.
So you think that story actually, if anything, would have silenced more whistleblowers, I suppose because they presume there's no good outcome, but at least talking about these things, showing that these issues are there, normally is what we're told we should be raising the profile of that so that more people open up about things.
That's the thing. I think you're absolutely right. And I would encourage women and men who feel that they've had some kind of violation at work, some harassment, which is just unwanted conduct that makes you feel intimidated, or it's intended to make you feel intimidated. It's hostile, degrading. I'd encourage you to speak up, because the law exists and the law has teeth. The problem is we don't enforce it or use it very well in this country. And in the background of that is if you look at what happens in criminal law, it's like less than 1% of reported rapes, and that's just reported rapes, result in conviction. So we're not doing something here, but I do think it's time that we spoke up and stood up for ourselves. I mean, there's some levels of behaviour you wouldn't want your wife, your daughter, your sister, your son to have to go through. And it's time we spoke up and defended people and made a case for using the law that exists.
So you say the law has teeth, and I take the point, but when you look at the outcomes, that seems to be a reason why many people might keep their mouths shut, but also a lack of knowledge of what the law is. I'm not sure we're incredibly well informed about what our rights are in the workplace.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's part of a background where people don't really want to rock the boat. You don't want to be labelled a troublemaker, but the law is really powerful. The Equality Act is a fantastic piece of legislation. It's been here since 2010. It makes harassment, victimisation illegal, and if anything happens to you at work and you lose your job as a result, it could well be just unlawful dismissal, which is a huge penalty on an employer. You've got things like the Public Interest Disclosure Act, which is a fantastic piece of legislation again, which says that if you want to report something that's a danger to your health or your safety, then any victimisation of you is automatically an offence. The law is here to protect you, but I agree with you. I don't think people know, and I think that's because that you see things that they're almost unbelievable, like the murder of Sarah Everard. And you kind of, I think a lot of people have lost trust in what society has to protect us. But I think going back to the Chris Pincher thing, somebody did speak up, and it actually, I think it contributed to the downfall of Boris Johnson in the end, because so many of his own MPs were horrified that he let that guy go through whilst knowing those accusations were there, and there was no investigation. It's all very well saying, well, we've got these codes of conduct and rules of behaviour in Parliament. If you don't use them, if you don't be brave enough to rock the boat and to take a stand, there's no point in having them there. You have to use them.
And I suppose that story and maybe the attitude in society anyway. It almost feels like I shouldn't say this bit out loud because it's the opposite of raising the good profile. But loads of people think secretly in the back of their head, yep, you can list all the laws and details you want, but at some point you will be punished for speaking up. Even if the law is in place to stop that happening, we fear that those in power will still find a way of doing it.
And you're right, and I think that's what you see. But I think a lot of people don't realise, as you said, quite rightly, Steve, what the law is there to do. And my team, other employment lawyers, we win cases all the time. And we win, you get financial remedy for sexual harassment in the workplace. It's also a criminal offence. What you need sometimes when you've been through this kind of experience and it's worn you down is somebody on your side to fight your corner. And that's where you need somebody. If it's not the police and you don't think it's sufficient for a criminal offence, just get some advice. A lot of lawyers or people like victim support will give you free advice just to say whether or not you think on balance there's something you could take forward, and they will take it forward for you. It's not, you don't have to fight this on your own. There are other people who are willing to take this fight on for you, and it's important to know that.
Yeah, it's another thing that I suppose we don't know. We don't have the info in our heads when we're making the decisions, not only the details of the law, but the support network, I suppose. Because it feels like the kind of battle that would be draining, and people make that choice in their head. Where do you want to spend your energy? Do you want to try and fight the battle, or would you find a different way around it? I suppose, do we have too many people finding other ways around of it, not facing it front on?
I think people just think, oh, well, you know, this is part of what usually happens at work, I'll put up with it. But hopefully, my daughter, for example, I don't think she would do that, and my mum would have done. And I think it's a generational thing. Maybe women particularly are starting to find it's okay to stand up and speak up, and the law is in their favour. And there's people like me, and there's lots of us about, who will stand and fight your corner for you. And it's really important. And I think as the Chris Pincher case, I keep going back to it, I think it's a really important turning point, because a lot of MPs stood up and were counted there. A lot of people who stood to lose their jobs, or who were going to be troublemakers or rock the boat, and, you know, whoever the next PM is, maybe it's Liz Truss, and it's likely to be Liz Truss, you know, they're risking their reputation. Are they saying they're going to be a troublemaker if they're standing up and saying this wasn't right? They still did it, and I applaud that. I think that was a great thing that they did. And what I would encourage everybody who's watching, who's had this kind of experience, to consider is you're not on your own. The law's on your side. People like me are on your side. But, you know, the MP stood up and were counted. That's a good thing.
And it is the ultimate in free speech issues, I suppose. Jo, thank you very much for that. That's Jo Mackie, principal lawyer at Slater and Gordon.